Sup, fucker?
How the hell are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm, as the kids say, getting down with the sickness.
Yeah?
It's going around,
Yeah, I see you munching on a bag of Halls.
Yeah, the treats for the day.
Yeah.
Halls, a little scratchy. Gonna be in my baritone phase here.
I know, I'm digging it, though. It's gonna be, play perfectly.
Yeah. In a world.
Fucking nailed it. In a world where Spencer doesn't feel 100%, we still continue on.
I feel okay. It's just the breathing and thinking part of being upright is challenging.
Well, it's a good thing you got a chair.
I just fucking go, I just do things. I'm just like, fuck it. Let's do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yep.
That's how I've been getting by. Been winging everything my whole life.
Might as well just go do some things, sick or not. Just fucking do it. Just a big swoosh right on my chest.
Just
gonna fucking do it.
Just fucking do it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm digging this chair setup. Hands-free.
I could do this.
You could do this.
I could do this. Just gotta watch that arm.
Yeah, you just gotta go around.
You could do a reach around.
Little finger reach around.
No, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's getting there. We got a little ways to go, but a little bit more each time.
Yeah. Got some cool signage coming through.
We do. Got some signage. We're going to get some more soundproofing. I'm going to actually learn how to use the equipment properly.
Fuck it, dude. It's turning into a fucking podcast, bro.
It's like a real podcast now.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about 80s movies.
80s movies. I love 80s movies, dude. They're like my bread and butter.
Yeah, man. I think 80s movies from the 80s just changed all of cinema.
Yeah, it really did in lots of different ways, like the way that movies were shot, the way that, movies are written.
Yeah.
Kind of change it to a place where movies weren't taken so seriously. It didn't have to be there was comedies and silly movies before, but the 80s took it to a whole new level of cheesy and just feel good, or just not taking themselves super seriously.
Yeah, and I think it was also great because it just kind of broke a lot of molds and kind of what movies were for a long time. Like action movies were either war movies or cowboy movies for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the 80s rolled around and you had the big guys like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson, and all these dudes come in and just start making action movies of different varieties instead of it just being those two genres.
Right.
And now you can't see action movies any different.
Yeah.
It's just so ingrained that it's like when a cowboy movie comes out or like a Western style movie, you're like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But that's what they had forever.
Yeah, I love Western movies, and there are some, I don't know if they're from the 70s or the 80s, that are some of my favorite movies. They Call Me Trinity. Have you ever seen that movie?
A long time ago.
Yeah. I don't know if it's from the 70s or the 80s, but it's fucking hilarious.
It is.
Yeah. But yeah, in the 80s also, it was kind of a time period where people were switching to, VHS and beta tapes were, becoming more popularized, and people watching movies at home was becoming such a big thing that they had to change how they were filming movies even.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more camera work. So 60s, 70s, when they were making movies, they would film a scene and it would be kind of a big wide open shot. Mm-hmm. And whereas that doesn't really play well on a small TV.
Yeah.
So they started doing a lot more cutting back and forth between people talking. Mm. So just the way that movies were shot even changed.
It is, because prior to the 80s, when the editing technology changed, they try to get as much in camera as possible to reduce the amount of edits, because if you ruin that film, you ruin that film.
Right.
And so there's so many scenes that are just lost to time because of editing mistakes, because it was literally a chop and splice process, and then it was a copy over. But in the 80s, where it was like film was more mass produced, it was easier to be like, let's try different edits, let's try more cuts, let's do this or that, you know. Instead of doing long takes, it was faster editing,
Right.
which you didn't see a whole lot of until the 80s, when you would actually see these more character-driven stories where they're cutting back and forth instead of just looking at one camera angle with two people talking.
Yeah, yeah. Which is like, almost when you look at it now, it seems weird, just because you're so used to the cutting back and forth. And so when you watch an older movie, and it feels weird, it's just the way that they shot the movie. It's just different.
I agree, but I think with the older movies, it still feels right, because the footage is still just, you know, a little grainy. It's not super high def, but I went on a tangent watching like a bunch of indie movies that were at Cannes, and it was like almost every one of them is just long, wide shots.
Yeah.
Like, we have digital editing, guys. You can do something a little bit more dynamic. So a lot of these movies that I watched, most of them were like short movies, 30 or 45 minutes. And most of them were hard to watch because it's just these singular camera angles, and it was just boring.
Now, do you think that they were they older movies? They were newer movies trying to fit into that genre?
Honestly, if I had to guess, it was just lazy filmmaking. Or they had like one camera and they were just trying to get all the shooting done.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, let's say there's a scene where we have a dialogue, I would put that one camera on you, you would read all your lines, and then we would switch and put the camera on me and I would read all my lines and then just edit back and forth. Instead, it was just like, let's just get it all in one shot. But the camera doesn't move at all, it's just stationary. So you have like these 6-7 minute shots of just two people talking, and they're not even saying anything that great. So it's like, God, these movies are boring.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 80s. I mean, you think about some of the classic movies. I mean, maybe it just feels classic to us because we're of a certain age.
29.
29, and we're like, what were the 80s like? Can't imagine what it was like, but like, even seeing some of the movies that are popping up on Netflix, like the other day I watched The Last Dragon.
Oh my God.
It was on Netflix. It just came on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that is such an 80s movie.
100%.
Like, kung fu and breakdancing in one movie, like put together.
Or like the scene where he starts glowing.
Yeah.
He's doing the hand thing.
You got the glow, you got the glow. I love that movie, dude. That's another one. Like we talked before, we would do like the Batman thing at the pool. Tell all your friends about me. Who are you? I'm Batman.
And then throw your brother into the pool.
Yeah.
That lives rent-free in my head. I think about that every once in a while, and I just start giggling.
Yeah. We'd pop out of the water and like do that thing where he gets the glow. Yeah. Who's the master?
Who's the master?
Sure enough.
I haven't seen that in forever, but I can recall that scene right off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah. Great movie. I mean, great in the stupidest way possible. Like, I was trying to show my oldest, who's 16, going to turn 17 this year. I was like, dude, this movie's awesome. Check it out. She was watching it. She's like, it's so boring. It's so dumb.
Did you hit her?
I was like, yeah, that's the point. It's supposed to be stupid.
Yeah, it's a movie like that. Nobody greenlit that script and was like, this is going to be one of the greatest movies ever. They were like, you know what? This is just going to be fun.
Yeah, you think that's dumb? Watch Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. That's way better, dude.
Way better. Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is in that movie, I think. Is it? Or Beat Street. One of those two movies he's in.
Yeah. Like right before he got popular.
Yeah, he's in the background, like, watching the breakdance.
Do you remember that one movie he was in right before he got like his breakout role? No Retreat, No Surrender.
No Surrender.
I fucking love that movie. And once in a while, I'll pull up a clip of it, or I'll come across one on YouTube and I watch it, and like the acting is so bad, and the camera, I think they filmed it on the cheapest camera they could find. But it's still just like you watch the movie and you're just like, this is awesome. This is like a slightly more adult version of Karate Kid.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole montage where he gets
Bruce Lee to train him.
Yeah, where he gets Bruce Lee to train him and he's riding his bike through that field, and it's raining outside, and we coined the phrase mud butt from that. But look at his mud butt, because he's riding through this field and he's riding his bike through this field, and the mud like shoots up on his ass crack, just like it looks like a big shit stain on the back of his pants. But yeah, that was another one of those movies, like Howard the Duck,
Fucking
Breaking Two, Electric Boogaloo. We had all of these movies recorded on VHS, like recorded off of the TV. On all the Indiana Jones, they would come on TV and you just record them on TV on a VHS tape. But that's how ghetto we were.
Yeah, my dad was pretty sharp at the time, and he did the old 2 VCR thing. Run the cables through and record. Like, we would rent a movie and then record it onto a blank tape, which was pretty cool because VHSs were expensive.
Yeah.
And you think about the price of a VHS in like 1992 or whatever, it was like $14.95.
Yeah.
But people only made $4 or $5 an hour at the time. So at the most, you know. So it was pricey to buy a movie, but you could go rent one for 99 cents.
Yeah.
And a blank tape was like $2.
Or you just go to the library and check them out.
That's true.
We would do that all the time. The libraries used to have, I guess they still have like DVDs and shit.
Probably.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a library in forever.
I haven't been to the library in a few years, but my kids like to go to the library still.
The old biblioteca?
Yeah. Those are these things where you open up their books, I guess. I don't know. Fuck with them.
It's not on my phone. I don't give a shit. I just thought it was a place where homeless people pissed on the wall.
Just where homeless people use to get warm in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Have you been to that library downtown?
No, but I've heard it's really cool.
It is really cool, but it is really homelessy.
Yeah. Well, it's downtown.
Yeah, it's a homeless
downtown is a shithole.
Yeah.
Dude, fucking Howard the Duck, that movie was so unhinged.
Yeah.
Just like this like budding romance between Howard the Duck and Leah Thompson's character. And then it's this kind of almost road trip type movie. And then you get to the end and this big fucking monster, claymation monster, is weird and scary, and you're like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah.
Even as a child, you're like, this just took a weird turn. And then Howard the Duck rides up on the little go-kart with the laser gun on the side, and you're like...
Who, Leah Thompson, is that?
Yeah.
Who was in that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that movie. I think it's actually a Marvel comic.
It is.
So yeah, they should put Howard the Duck in the Marvel Universe.
He is in the Marvel Universe.
Oh, he's in...
So he... I want to
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, so he was in Guardians, and then he was in a post-credit scene in another movie, and then in the final battle in Endgame, you know, when they're all like lining up, the Avengers Assemble scene, he's in the lineup. It's really hard to see him. And then there was just recently an episode of Marvel's What If with Howard the Duck.
Really?
I haven't watched it. I've only seen like a picture of it because I just haven't had the time to sit down. Because I know as soon as I start it, I'm going to binge that whole fucking season. Because Marvel's What If is just a lot of fun to watch. But I know there's an episode with him in there. But yeah, he's in the Marvel Universe.
I loved that movie when I was a kid. I remember watching it before school even. Like before going to school in the morning, we'd wake up and just like waiting for the bus or waiting for, whatever, pop in that movie and start watching.
I remember it was one of my sister's, one of her favorite movies, so it was like when it was her turn to put on a movie, I was like, I don't want to watch Howard the Duck, and then she would put it on anyway, and I'm like, joke's on you.
Please don't put on Howard the Duck again.
Yes. And there's so many just super goofy scenes in that movie, and that just plays to the whole style of the 80s, where a lot of things were over the top and silly and didn't make any sense, but that was what was fun about it.
Yeah.
You think about like John Hughes movies, which kind of defined part of the 80s, because you had movies about kids and teenagers, which you really didn't have a lot of before, because people who were actually watching TV, they didn't care about kid stuff or teenager things, They didn't care about like the characters in 16 Candles or The Breakfast Club or anything like that. But John Hughes has made so many iconic movies just in that decade that it helped, change cinema as it went forward. Think about Weird Science.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
Yeah.
Completely, totally 80s.
Yeah.
And it was just so good. It was just fun. Like, you didn't have to think too much about it.
And it's one of those movies that, like, I don't think that it could have been made in any other decade, really. Maybe the 2000s. That premise would work, but like the 80s totally fits. Like,
I think you could have got away with it up to like the late 90s, because the internet was becoming super popular, and like you could have folded that into it. But after that, it didn't fit anymore. But the 80s were like a big, larger than life time for a lot of people,
Yeah.
Look at like the fashion and the way people did their hair and the clothes and everything that went with it. Like, it was a huge pop culture eruption that movie fit perfectly into.
Yeah. I think it had a lot to do with like probably because of like it was a new marketable audience, was teenagers, like going to the mall and going to movies by themselves. And
absolutely. So
making movies about that kind of stuff that people could relate to, those kids that are spending the money could relate to, and it was a whole new market of putting something out that the people are going to buy,
Yeah, I didn't really put it into that perspective until you just said it. Like, going to the mall was super popular then.
Right.
And there was always like a movie theater at the mall, where, you were kind of marketing to that audience that was there to spend money.
Right.
Make movies that they enjoyed, that they wanted to go see.
Yeah.
Because as a teenager, you're not going to go to the movie theater with your friends to go see something your dad would want to see, or your grandpa would want to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a little different now because there's just not that many good movies. Whereas, like, I could see one of my kids going to see like a John Wick movie or whatever. But in the 80s and the 90s, you wouldn't do that.
No. You'd go see the Goonies and Monster Squad and E.T. or Star Wars. I mean, but there was all these teen genre movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and 16 Candles and Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
That, all the Corey movies, Gleaming the Cube.
Fucking Corey movies, holy shit.
That were just really marketed to teens. I think that it was a smart move, like smart marketing. But yeah, it was just a whole new audience that they could really make some money off of, and I think they did.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, with that though, they also kind of ended certain other genres of movies, like you mentioned Indiana Jones, the kind of swashbuckling hero. Those movies kind of died out with that. And so when you kind of had somewhat of a resurgence with like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that's why those were so profitable, because we kind of missed that era of Indiana Jones movies or Sinbad or those other kind of characters that got into these crazy adventures. But Indiana Jones was so pivotal in the 80s because you had those first three movies came out in the 80s, and then you had the other ones that came out 20 and 30 years later that just are trash.
Yeah, we don't include those.
You know what? I like the fourth one, honestly.
The Crystal Skulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one It's obviously not as good, but it's okay. But that last one that came out, Dial of Destiny, piece of shit.
So which Indiana Jones film is your favorite?
Oh, Last Crusade.
Last Crusade.
That's where it's at.
Yep. I have to agree wholeheartedly with The Last Crusade. Was that in the 80s or was that in the 90s?
It was in the 80s. Because I think the first one came out in 81-ish.
Probably.
And then the last one I think came out in 89. Yeah, another set of directors that helped define that decade was Steven Spielberg, who directed those, and George Lucas, who wrote them. But George Lucas had his hand all the way through the 80s because he also did Howard the Duck.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was a producer for a lot of Steven Spielberg movies. God damn, what was that other movie he did in the 80s? Oh yeah, Return of the Jedi.
Oh, Star Wars.
Yeah, that little indie film, Return of the Jedi.
Peaceful, little space odyssey type movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so I think that sequels really were a big thing. Maybe not so much. I mean, a lot of the movies in the 80s became a sequel, like a franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Except for one major movie that was the highest grossing movie throughout the whole decade of the 80s was E.T. So I figured, dude, we should write a screenplay for E.T. 2. But think about it. Here's the premise, dude.
Okay.
So the scene opens with a middle-aged man signing into a book where he's going to a therapist, his bi-weekly therapist visit. And so he can get his prescription medication because he's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because his whole life he believed that when he was a 8-year-old boy, an alien came and visited him. So it turns out the aliens are coming back. And E.T.'s mission was actually to come here and destroy the world. But he failed because they didn't account for the gravity being so strong, and so they're really 7 feet tall creatures. But the gravity smushed him down to look like a fucking old man scrotum. So he's coming back and they got these exoskeleton suits now. And so it's like a E.T. meets Independence Day sequel.
Little War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
I dig it.
We can write that. In a world.
Maybe the whole finger, the glowy finger thing, was supposed to be like he was gonna almost like in Prometheus, where he was supposed to kill himself and then his body would release a pathogen to kill everybody, but he just didn't have the power to ignite it. Ouch!
Ouch!
Maybe instead of it healing, it was actually hurting him to light it up, and that's why he's ouch.
No home to call. E.T. 2, Elliot's Lament.
That's a sound clip right there. That was perfect.
Yeah, we should write that. And anybody wants to buy a screenplay, just hit us up, dude.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think just a major network just needs to give us unlimited funding.
Yeah.
Because we have all these shows in line. We have scripts that could be turned into movies. And
yeah. I know that MTV, if you're looking for actual shows that are going to be cool, instead of just playing ridiculousness and what's that rap show that they play nonstop on MTV now? It's like a Nick Cannon's show.
Oh, if it's got Nick Cannon, I'm out.
Oh yeah.
I can't fucking stand that guy.
Trash.
Hey, at least they got away from that 16 and Pregnant or Teen Mom or whatever show.
Mom,
yeah, those shows were atrocious.
Yeah. So yeah, some of my favorite movies from the 80s are those kid movies that are like the kid adventure movies, like Goonies and Labyrinth and
The Lost Boys. Classic.
Princess Bride. still movies that I show my kids and they love to this day,
Yeah. It's hard to show your kids movies from when you were a kid because they look at production value and things like that over what the actual movie is.
Yeah.
And that's always hard because you want to show them a movie like Blazing Saddles. And that still has a lot of comedy in it, but they just see it as an old movie instead of a good movie.
Yeah.
And Blazing Saddles is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Maybe my kids are weird because I show them and they love those movies like Spaceballs and.
It's hard not to love those movies though. Like the Mel Brooks movies, they're just so good and they're so timeless.
Yeah. So they watch Spaceballs, The Holy Grail. They love The Goonies,
Young Frankenstein.
I don't know if they've actually seen Young Frankenstein, but that's a good one too. Yeah. But all those Mel Gibson movies from there, well, I won't say all of them, but most of those Mel Gibson movies are pretty good.
Yeah, speaking of sequels in the 80s, it definitely kind of changed the paradigm on sequels because there wasn't too many movies that had a lot of sequels coming up to them. And I think James Cameron really helped that by making Aliens. Mm-hmm. So the first Alien came out, I think, in 1979. And then in 1986, he made the sequel. And I'll fight anybody. I think Aliens is better than Alien.
Yeah.
And that was such a huge sequel that almost didn't even work because of all these, production hell issues. But that movie came out and it was it left people wanting more of that series. And it really kind of kicked off the whole idea of franchises. Granted, Star Wars had done it and a couple other... The Godfather... Overrated.
Yeah, I've tried to watch the Godfather series multiple times and I just think it's boring.
I do too.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool, the acting is great. But it's just kind of boring. Why is this 4 hours long? This could have been an hour and a half movie and a little more enjoyable.
I mean... I haven't watched them in a long time, but the way I recall them is fuck, you could have just trimmed so much off of each movie and then made one 4-hour movie and it would have been better.
Yeah.
But each movie is 3 or 3.5 hours or whatever, and I'm not trying to hate on it because there's a lot of good actors and it is a good story and Francis Ford Coppola is a really good director, but it's this has so much in it that you could just cut out and you wouldn't even miss it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think they're super overrated.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway.
I know, blasphemers. But, I'm not saying they're not good movies, they're just, I don't know, a little boring. Pick up the pace.
They're bloated.
Yeah.
I think that's a good word. It's like when you watch a Christopher Nolan movie and it's 3 hours. You're in it for those 3 hours. You enjoy it. Again, blaspheme with the exception of Oppenheimer. That movie did not need to be that fucking long. It's a good movie. It's entertaining. It's still very well made, but there's a whole lot that didn't need to be in there. And I remember watching it with my dad, and 20 minutes into it, he's kind of and I'm watching it going, this is going to pick up. I know it is. And it never really does. It's just kind of one pace the whole time. But yeah, if you've got a long movie, it needs to be entertaining from front to back.
Yeah.
Even The Batman with Robert Pattinson, super long movie. For the most part, it's entertaining, and then it has lull moments where you're like, God, can we get to something?
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of really long movies in the 80s.
Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of where the shift just happened of making them quick and dirty, get to the point.
Like Cannon films?
Action Jackson style, dude.
Jackson, dude.
Get to it. Remo Williams.
Oh my God, I haven't seen Remo Williams in forever. I love that movie. Then I had some notes. Die Hard was a huge movie there.
Die Hard.
And I think what was cool about that was making the more normal guy feel like an action star, where you had, you know, the big dudes like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, or even Dolph Lundgren, and these huge muscle-bound dudes, and then you have Bruce Willis, who looks like a normal fucking dude.
Yeah.
Who's becomes an action star.
Yeah.
And I thought that was also really cool in its own way, because he's also just a cop, where all these other action stars from that time, in the movies, they had these backgrounds of like special forces or Navy SEALs or whatever, and then they get thrust into these scenarios where they have to overcome. But Bruce Willis is just a cop. Like, anybody can become a cop.
Yeah.
So it felt very like John Everyman in a way.
For sure. Yeah, like you said, I think that's one of the appeals to that character, is just that, like, he just goes out there and gets it done, dude, you know?
Yeah, and I love that he actually got hurt and stuff throughout the movie, versus you would watch like a Schwarzenegger movie or whatever, and he
I got shot in the arm.
He's just like, he keeps
we
going.
put a bandage on it.
He's just like,
Yeah.
I'm good. My saliva can cure cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, Stallone. I used to think that Cobra was so cool, dude. I mean, not that he's not cool, but like, I want to get one of those cars. I want to get, you know, I want to get a leather jacket, some fingerless gloves, put a match in my mouth.
Yeah. I want to wear my black aviator shades everywhere. Yeah. Just sitting there taking a dump wearing your shades.
I want to eat a slice of pizza while I'm cleaning my revolver or cleaning my pistol.
I want to keep my gun cleaning kit in an egg carton.
In an egg carton in the fridge, yeah.
It would be so cool if you go up to a gangbanger and just rip his shirt and him not do a fucking thing about it.
I have a pizza box with one slice of pizza in it.
And you're going to cut it with scissors.
You can cut it with scissors.
For no fucking reason.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, again, it's just that over-the-top nature of the 80s, and it was just... I'm willing to bet anybody who watched that movie at the time was like, he's so fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
But we could watch it now and go...
That's tight, dude.
Like, why did he cut the frozen pizza with scissors? Or was there a reason?
You know, there's just things that we don't understand about being cool, I guess.
You know, that's got to be it. You know what movie he actually turned down in order to make Cobra?
What?
Beverly Hills Cop.
Really?
So that's another thing I really love about the 80s, was it started to turn people into stars who were a star in a different field. So Eddie Murphy was one of the greatest stand-up comics of all time.
Right.
And then he gets cast in movies, not just Beverly Hills Cop, but he also did Coming to America,
Golden Child,
The Golden Child, Trading Places. He did all these really funny movies, and then they made him an action star.
Yeah.
Which is so out of archetype, but you watch him as Axel Foley, and you're like, I love this fucking guy.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, 40 years later, they make a sequel. I mean...
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
No. It's good? I totally forgot they even made it.
It's hard for me to say, because Eddie Murphy is still Axel Foley.
Mm-hmm.
And they make a kind of a keep taking jabs about it, of like, your style of being a cop doesn't fit in this modern world, but it still works in the movie. So I still love him as Axel Foley, but the movie itself is kind of flat. But the third movie was also kind of flat too.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 2 was dope.
Yeah. Lethal Weapon, dude.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do an 80s movies episode without talking about Lethal Weapon.
It's in my notes.
Yeah.
Well, that made the buddy movie.
Yeah.
And now how many buddy
cops.
movies have you seen? And not even just cops. Or when you take these two kind of polar opposite characters and put them together, and now they're best friends.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen that so many times, But that was like the first time it actually worked.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone as Axel Foley. Another dimension, I guess.
You know, it's funny you say that, because if I could travel to other dimensions or other realities, I would do it solely for the movies.
Just for the movies.
Just so I could see like the world where Mel Gibson was actually in Die Hard and Bruce Willis was in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
Because that was actually the thing where they were trying to get Bruce Willis to do Lethal Weapon, but he didn't want to share the screen with anybody, and they were trying to get Mel Gibson to do Die Hard, but he didn't really like the script, and it ended up being they get cast in the opposite roles. I would still love to see the alternate reality where Mel Gibson plays John McClane.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would that be? Just running through Nakatomi Plaza with his gracious mullet.
His mullet.
Just fucking...
I'd watch it, dude. Hell yeah, I'd watch it.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about Bruce Willis playing Riggs, but I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, there's so many of his movies that I really like. I think that maybe he just did a really good job of like picking the roles that he wanted to play, but you know, not just Die Hard, but like Hudson Hawk.
I fucking love Hudson Hawk.
Yeah.
And the few people I've talked to that have seen it go, that movie's so stupid. That's the fucking point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reindeer goat cheese pizza. You took down Captain Bob's steering wheel. That movie is infinitely quotable to those who have seen it and like it.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
But yeah, he did a lot of movies that were kind of like action borderline comedy movies, and then straight up like serious roles. He did a lot of that. So yeah, I think that you know, some of his movies are a little bit underrated or like slept on.
Yeah, I think him and Mel Gibson actually have like kind of parallel careers in that sense, that they have their kind of action movies and then they have dramatic movies or comedic movies and things like that. They're much more varied in their career than like Stallone and Schwarzenegger were, where they were kind of one-trick ponies. Stallone has kind of come away from that and shown he's got a little bit more range. I don't think Schwarzenegger can do anything besides action or comedy.
Yeah.
I mean...
So he did a movie, maybe it's one of the more serious roles that I've seen him do. I think it was in the early, maybe 2010-ish, where it's like a zombie movie.
Maggie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a serious role for him.
So when he was trying to make a resurgence, he did that movie and another movie, I can't remember the name of it, where an air traffic controller made a mistake or something like that, and then a plane went down, but his wife and daughter were on the plane, and he was so consumed by, like, Schwarzenegger was so consumed by anger and rage that he tried to kill this air traffic controller, and it was just a big drama movie. I watched like part of it and I was like, holy shit, he can actually do more than just look like Schwarzenegger.
Deliver one-liners.
Yeah.
be super buff.
Yeah. Granted, he was probably like 60 at the time it came out, but it was nice to see him take a step out of his kind of comfort zone. But at the same time, audiences don't really want that from him.
Yeah.
They want him to shoot big guns and throw people around and say one-liners. Mm-hmm. Which, if I was an actor and I was kind of pigeonholed to that and I was making $20 million fucking dollars a movie, I'd do it.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Get to the chopper.
That's a classic 80s movie right there.
Yeah.
Predator?
Predator.
So I have in my notes sci-fi movies from the 80s, because that really changed all of sci-fi, where up to that point, sci-fi movies were like Logan's Run or The Day the Earth Stood Still and things like that, where they were a little hokey. Mm-hmm. There was some cool stuff, some interesting stuff, but in the 80s it all changed. You think about Blade Runner, Predator. I have a couple more on here. RoboCop, Terminator, all these sci-fi action movies that were just like, not only let's take these two genres and put them together, let's make them interesting and cool.
Yeah. Major blockbuster movies, like just bigger than life type movies. Yeah. I remember watching Predator for the first time. My dad rented it, and we had Pizza Hut pizza and watched The Predator. And my life changed after that.
That's hilarious you say that, because I remember the first time I watched Predator, I couldn't have been but like 5 years old, and I remember we got Pizza Hut, that's hilarious. And I remember at the time, because I had this little like Superman figure, it was just like a still plastic figure, but I remember taking the little table thing off of the pizza and like playing with that while watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then I had nightmares about it that night.
About the Superman on the table?
No,
or
about Predator. Because I remember trying to distract myself in the scary moments by playing with these things. But yeah, I remember getting Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, which is the funny thing about it is that like the coolest character that I thought in that movie was fucking Billy.
Billy was a fucking badass, which I love the behind the scenes stuff on movies, and that's one of my favorites. Was that part of the studio's demands to hire him for that was to hire a bodyguard for him, not to protect him, to keep everybody safe from the actor who played Billy, because he was like a huge douche and he was like a huge bully. So they got this guy who was like 6'8" to keep him in line. Had to go with him everywhere 24 hours a day.
Huh.
Sonny Landham, I think is his name. But yeah, they had to hire this fucking bodyguard to keep him in check.
That's funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, what other, like, I guess, the 80s kind of, well, I guess it started in the late 70s, but like the horror movies that were born in the 80s.
Oh my God, like Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah, Freddy Krueger, Jason.
Yeah.
Michael Myers, I think the first Halloween movie came in like 77 or 78.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
But yeah, I mean, birthing the genre of what would it be, like serial monsters or slasher films? Yeah, and then they took on their lives of their own. What is there, like 19 Freddy Krueger movies now or something like that?
Fuck, at this point, I think Freddy and Jason are tied for 27,000 each. And only like 4 of them are good.
Yeah. But yeah, they kind of gave way to the movies that we see now, like Scream. But yeah, changing 80s, the 80s decade just changed all genres of movies, I think.
They did, and I think there's so many underrated horror movies from the 80s. Because when you think about that, you think about, Freddy and Jason, or Prom Night, or some of these other more prevalent horror movies, but there's so many other really good ones. Like, do you remember the movie The Gate?
Yeah.
That movie's so silly, but it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
Or
Puppet Master.
Hellraiser. House and House 2.
Yeah, I remember.
Which House 2 is like, dude, this movie doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be.
Yeah.
But it's so entertaining.
Is it a comedy? Is it a scary movie?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be dramatic?
I actually was trying to get Scott to watch it a few months ago, and he's like, I don't get any of this. And I was like, just watch it. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
Like the big bird thing and the dead grandpa, and they get drunk together and shit, and then the gunfight at the end with the creepy cowboy guy.
Yeah.
Like, all of it's goofy and none of it fits together, but it fits together.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
There was another movie called Saturday the 14th. We used to watch. It was supposed to be like a spoof type movie of Friday the 13th, but it was Saturday the 14th. Stupid movie. It's like one of those movies you can't really describe it. You just have to watch it. It's so dumb. Like monsters are coming out of this. It's almost like an Addams Family type thing, but like I don't know. It's really dumb.
Totally have to check that out. Saturday the 14th.
Yeah. I mean, if you're super bored and get real drunk, you could probably watch it.
I don't need those things in conjunction, but I'll do it just for research sake. Here's another set of movies that helped kind of define that decade was the vacation movies.
Oh, yeah.
Which are also John Hughes movies, but Christmas Vacation and what's the one where they go to the theme park?
Isn't that just Vacation?
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, there's
European Vacation.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them just in that decade alone. And those movies went on for so long that they had to keep recasting the kids.
Yeah.
Like Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo were the same characters.
And the kids changed every single one.
The kids like have to keep changing actors to stay around the same age.
Yeah.
Because they had like Vegas Vacation in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then I think that was the last one they did of those. But yeah, those movies are so good.
They are.
And you could even watch it now and go, this is still fucking funny.
Yeah, we watch Christmas Vacation like every, during Christmas. It's one of those Christmas movies that's a family classic comedy movie, just like The Grinch and Home Alone.
Not Die Hard. Not Die Hard. It's not a Christmas movie. I don't give a shit if it's a Christmas movie or not. I just love trolling people about it. That's all.
I just think that it's funny that people classify it as a Christmas movie because I never really thought of it that way. And then, I guess it does take place during Christmas. Does that make it a Christmas movie?
I think that's the debate because Lethal Weapon, the first one, takes place at Christmas. Does that make it a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's a Lethal Weapon movie. It's an action movie.
Well, it's like Nightmare Before Christmas. Is that a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie?
You watch it?
I watch it that whole season,
Yeah. Between October 1st and December 31st, it's still okay.
It's, one of the movies that's on repeat. What was I thinking? Gone. It's all the cough syrup, dude. I've been drinking. Promethazine.
That's a cool name. So, did I mention Blade Runner?
No.
Sci-fi movies. So Blade Runner was a huge sci-fi movie. I've seen it several times. I don't get the appeal. I've seen Blade Runner 2049. I don't get the appeal. They're very well made movies. And I get their contribution to sci-fi, but I think they're kind of boring. With the exception of Rutger Hauer in the first one, where he does his speech about teardrops in the rain and shit, that's an iconic movie moment. The rest of the movie is fucking boring.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford is totally phoning it in.
Well, yeah. The newer one, it was boring.
It's pretty bad when one of the best acting scenes in that movie is from fucking Dave Bautista in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, that was interesting. And then the rest of the movie is just like this.
It goes, jumps way up and then just falls flat.
Well, I kind of feel like any movie that you cast Jared Leto in, you're automatically going to have problems.
Unless you beat the shit out of him.
That's fair. Fight Club.
Yeah. The Ups man is here.
I'll be right back.
What can Brown do for you?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Little pee break.
Yeah. So I also think that 80s movies started becoming kind of meta for themselves. You look at a movie like Wall Street, where they kind of take on actual social issues of corporate greed and things like that, versus kind of in the times before, it was just, it wasn't something that was really dealt with or talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, making movies kind of an introspective, you know, thing to look at.
Kind of a commentary on society.
Social issues, yeah. Yeah, I never really thought of that. Is that Michael Douglas, Wall Street?
Yeah, and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah. Good movie.
It is a good movie. The sequel was interesting too.
What is?
It was where Gordon Gekko gets out of prison, and his daughter has grown up, and she's with Shia LaBeouf's character.
What's it called? Wall Street 2.
I can't remember. I remember seeing it, and he kind of like used Shia LaBeouf's character because he was also into finance, and used him to kind of get back on top, and he's simultaneously trying to repair the relationship with his daughter, and then he fucks it up and then ends up repairing it anyway.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
There's actually a scene where...
Is that pretty recent, or the last 10 years?
Probably the last 10 years. There's a scene in it where Gordon Gekko goes to get a haircut, and he walks into this specific barbershop, and there's Donald Trump getting a haircut. And they have a quick exchange. Like, that's entertaining.
That is. So I've got a list here of, like, this is a list of, it says classic 80s movies that you've probably forgotten. We've talked about a lot of these, actually. Hold on really quick. I'll get to the top. Adventures in Babysitting.
Classic.
One of those teen movies. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh my God.
If you guys have not seen Big Trouble in Little China, you should probably just go fuck yourself right now.
Yeah, checks in the mail.
Because that is, I mean, Kurt Russell at his finest.
Kurt Russell all throughout the 80s was just top tier. I mean, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. Like, that guy was untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing all kinds of shit, like comedies, action movies.
Overboard.
The Thing was a pretty scary movie, horror movie.
The Thing is, yeah, again, it's that kind of sci-fi horror where, you know, like I said, in the 80s, they were starting to blend genres together to make more interesting movies.
Yeah. But that's I swear that's where they got the idea for Raiden in fucking...
Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat, yeah.
It has to be. It came way before.
Yeah. An American Werewolf in London.
Classic.
E.T., The Burbs. Desperately Seeking Susan. Gremlins.
Gremlins. Dude, my daughter
Christmas movie.
My daughter is like hardcore into Gremlins right now.
Oh, yeah?
And it's so great.
That's cute. Howard the Duck, we talked about. The Explorers.
Oh, the space movie, yeah.
Yeah. That was a good movie.
That kind of goes in line with Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah. Is that the one where they go inside the guy's body? Or the lady's body?
No, that's the one where this alien spacecraft picks up a kid.
Oh,
and the kid becomes the navigator.
Yeah. There was right after E.T. came out, there was another movie that came out that was like trying to be E.T. Mac and Me.
I knew you were gonna say Mac and Me.
I swear that whole thing is a McDonald's commercial, dude.
Yeah, they're always drinking Coke from McDonald's and shit. Like they do. I actually made that joke to my cousin a couple weekends ago because growing up, that was like her favorite movie, and she would go around doing that all the time. I love that, Paul Rudd, the actor. Yeah. Every time he goes on a talk show, and he
plays a scene for that when that kid falls off the cliff.
He's like, I'm going to play a scene for my new movie, and then it's the wheelchair kid.
Here's the clip right here. You'll have to edit that in. If you haven't seen that movie, you're missing out.
That's one that I definitely think you should be bored and a little drunk for.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie you're going to be like, this is so dumb. Yeah. At least if you're drunk, you'll laugh.
I swear there is actually like a scene where there's like a dance scene at a McDonald's.
I remember there being a scene at McDonald's, but I haven't seen it since I was like probably 7 or 8 or 9 or something.
But the whole thing, Mac and Me, and McDonald's. It's also clear I was brainwashed. That's why I love McDonald's.
God, it makes total sense now.
Yeah. Ghostbusters.
Oh my God, why didn't I put Ghostbusters in there?
Yeah.
That's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
All time? I love all of them, dude. I'll watch all of them.
Even the female reboot, I enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed the recent sequels.
Yeah.
I thought Ghostbusters 2 was good. I don't know why people hate on it.
Yeah. There isn't a Ghostbusters movie that, like, if I walked in and it was playing, I'd watch it. Like,
yeah.
Or if I was flipping through the channels and the Ghostbusters movie was on.
I'm watching
it, dude.
And I'm going to quote it the whole fucking time. Yeah. You don't want to watch it with me because I'll say it verbatim.
Like, just turn it off, dude, and I'll act it out.
Can you imagine, like, if some super movie critic listens to this and he's like, listen to these fucking Philistines saying The Godfather is boring, but the Ghostbusters reboot is good? What a bunch of idiots. And I would say to that guy, you can suck both inches.
Yeah. Both inches. I think that those movie critics just, I don't know, dude, like, the paid movie critics, I think are just, like, so full of shit. Or maybe they just watch so many movies that, like, if you had to watch, like, 6 or 7 movies a day, I mean, that's a fucking Tuesday for me. I think it'd be easy, but you might get bored, or you've seen stories replayed,
I think so. I remember taking drama classes in high school, and my drama teacher was great because she would express of the breakdown of how stories should work out and how they should be kind of structured and put together. And then she was also great about being like, now that you understand structure, you don't have to abide by it. You can go in whatever direction you want, but if your story's incoherent, it's incoherent because you didn't do the structure. But do what you feel is right, or enjoy what you feel is right, and explaining like the difference between high and low comedy and things like that. But she expressed to us that you didn't have to like one because it fit the archetype, because it fit the structure, or because somebody else told you to. You're allowed to like whatever you like. It does not matter. It's just about understanding flow of story.
Yeah.
So even if a critic says a movie sucks or it's stupid, but you like it, you don't have to feel dumb because somebody else says their opinion and you don't agree with it.
Yeah.
It's just whatever you like is whatever you like. And I've always kind of stuck to that, especially when you think about Ghostbusters. Like, the first Ghostbusters is extremely well written. The jokes are very high comedy. It's very smart. And then you start adding in the things like the special effects at the time, or having all these comedic actors and all these things that fit so well together. And then you watch like the 2016 reboot with all the women, and their jokes are very low comedy. Like, there's literal fart jokes and shit like that. And it's still fucking funny to me. Yeah. It's still entertaining. And I know a lot of critics and people hate that movie, and it's like, I had fun watching it. I don't really care if anybody else doesn't like it.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like, most of the movies that come out that are like critically acclaimed boring. They're kind of fucking boring.
If you look at the list of,
I mean, maybe it's because, like, if you're a critic and you're a 70-year-old man and you're watching a movie like the Ghostbusters with the female reboot, you're going to think it's lowbrow. You're going to think that it's untasteful, probably, because you don't get it.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like, for an audience that's used to watching Saturday Night Live and seeing these comics do what they're doing on this movie, they get it. Like, so yeah, I think in everything that, you know, your opinion is your opinion, and why do they have these people that are being paid to watch a movie and judge it, or like tell people that it's good or not? Like, dude, if you like the movie, you like the movie. If you don't like the movie,
I've never understood why there is such a thing as a paid movie critic.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. And even nowadays we have Rotten Tomatoes, which people use as their barometer for if a movie is good or not. Have you ever went on Rotten Tomatoes, looked up a movie that you really love, and then read the like certified critics reviews?
Yeah.
They're dog shit.
Yeah.
They're just absolute trash. But then they'll go watch a movie that, you know, won an Academy Award or whatever, and they're like, this is one of the greatest movies ever. And you watch it and you're like, this movie fucking sucks. Even if you look at the list of movies that have won Academy Awards, most of them suck.
Yeah.
Or they're boring, or it's 90 minutes and only one cool thing happens, you know?
And I think a lot of those movies, like, I kind of wonder if it's they're looking at the way that it's shot, or the way that, you know, the cinematography is done on the movie that helps tell the story, and which most people don't really pay attention to, or they don't really. I mean, there's some scenes that really stick out. Like we've talked before about, like, long shots and especially in action sequences that really stick out, that help tell a story in a really dynamic way. But like for those slower paced movies that you're not really paying attention to those things, I can see that, you know, where a critic is looking at those aspects, like, okay, yeah, this movie is such a crazy movie because of this and that, you know. Okay, I get that, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
This shit was fucking boring. Yeah, it was a long shot of an open field and the guy was talking. Like, get on to the story.
I think there's a way to use cinematography to tell a beautiful story about something that may not be as like huge and world impacting, where you're telling like a one person story and using cinematography as a great tool to get there. But for the most part, that's just not how it works. You think about Gladiator, you know, in the scene where he's walking through the wheat fields and his hand is just kind of flowing on the wheat, and the music is playing in the background, and they're expressing an emotion that the character is feeling at the time. Like, that's the way you use cinematography to express something, versus just like a long, slow panning into the guy's eye where nobody's talking and there's no music, and you're just like, this is so just pretentious. I was actually thinking about it the other day, about Academy Award winning movies that really deserve it, and I thought about, I'm pretty sure it's 2005, where you had all these great movies come out. You had Batman Begins, you had Sin City, just a whole slew of amazing movies, and the one that won was No Country for Old Men. And I saw that and I went, you know what, that's okay, I'm okay with that. And then you see the ones that went after that, or like Life of Pi or Slumdog Millionaire, and you're like, I've seen these movies and they're fucking boring, and there's nothing really interesting about them.
Yeah.
But the 80s didn't do that.
No.
The 80s was way over the top.
The 80s were over the top. Like I said, 90 minutes, 92 minutes. Fucking get in there, pump your guts full of lead. And, you know, leave you wanting more, just dripping, like, ready for more action.
Just dripping. The way you said that. Just let me drip it.
Yeah, the 80s were dirty. They were raw. Fucking... Let's see what else we got on this list. What the fuck? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh my god.
Short Circuit, dude.
Johnny Five is alive! Dude, how can anybody watch that and not be entertained?
Yeah. What was it? I know there was at least one sequel, if not more.
Yeah, I want to say there was 2 sequels, maybe.
If you guys haven't seen Short Circuit, go watch it now because that's what's coming up, dude. We're gonna have robots just doing shit for us.
I mean, they'll be more human-like.
Yeah.
It's going to be more like in the Animatrix.
I think if I was going to buy a robot, I'd probably want like a J5 robot.
Either that or the one from Rocky 4 or 5 or whatever, the Happy Birthday robot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't mind a Chappie.
Chappie?
Yes.
Oh, Chappie would be dope. That seriously underrated movie.
Yeah.
I think
Even though fucking Diane Antwoord is like the main stars in that movie,
But Hugh Jackman plays a great fucking villain in that movie.
Hugh Jackman.
Huge jacked man.
Yeah.
And it really helps that he has a fucking mullet in that movie, because I assume if you have a mullet, you're an asshole. And he played it perfectly.
Yeah.
Sorry to anybody who's got a mullet, but
You're an asshole.
You look like an asshole.
Just so you know, you are an asshole. Willow.
Oh my God. That's the other movie I was trying to think of with George Lucas.
Yeah.
Because he did
there
it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe George Lucas and the puppets, dude. Like, the puppets of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, God, Willow was such a fucking fun movie. I remember T talking shit about it one day, and I was like, "Nah, don't you say that."
You shut your filthy mouth, dude.
Fucking Val Kilmer was such a stud in that movie.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm the world's greatest swordsman."
Doesn't he have really bad teeth in that movie, too?
At first, yeah. And then magically they're pearly white the next day after he, like, cleans them with something. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, another one of those movies that my kids like to watch, and it's like, why are you guys watching these stupid movies from the 80s? That's dope.
Right? I'm proud. Willow, turn me back.
Stand By Me.
Oh, wow.
Another
Dude,
great
Stephen
movie.
King movies from the 80s, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Cujo. Fucking... What's the Red Rum movie? That was probably from the 80s.
That was the 70s, The Shining.
Yeah.
Same with Carrie, but oh fuck, I was just thinking of like 2 more Stephen King movies from that era.
Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary. Fuck.
Shawshank, was that
in the 90s. There was a couple more in that era.
While you think about it, I'll just list off some of these movies that if people out there, you haven't seen these movies, St. Elmo's Fire, Weird Science, we talked about, Footloose, we've talked about Rage Dancing, Still Magnolias, great, I mean, that, like Still Magnolias, Fried Green Tomatoes, total drama, like heartstrings type movies. Love them. Highlander, the fucking Highlander, Purple Rain.
There can be only one.
Dirty Dance, dude. We haven't really talked about
Patrick Swayze.
You can't talk about the 80s without talking about Swayze.
Dude, he had a stranglehold in the 80s with only 2 movies.
Yeah.
Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse.
Yeah.
And Roadhouse is 100% a fucking 80s movie.
And he came in fucking banging on the set in the 90s with the Ghost.
Ghost and Point Break.
Point Break.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already established it. Like, you're the Bodhi character.
Bodhi.
So you got to do the Patrick Swayze.
Yeah. I can't think of what he says.
The Bodhisattva.
Yeah.
The great swell in Australia.
Come on, man!
It's pretty bad that in that movie, Keanu Reeves has the most like quotable lines because of his delivery of a lot of them are just not good.
If you ever fired a gun while it's flying through the air.
That scene in Hot Fuzz where it's my dad.
Beetlejuice.
Oh my God, Beetlejuice. Such a fucking great movie.
Great movie. Again, it's like one of those movies that if I was flipping through the channels, I'm going to watch it every single time and quote it the whole way through the movie.
And it's funny too because Beetlejuice is only in the movie for like 17 minutes total.
Yeah.
But every time he's on, he's just fascinating. But that's one of those movies that put yourself in the mind of an executive where Tim Burton comes to you and is like, hey, I want to make this movie about a ghost and these two people die, but then you have this ghost exorcist guy who's just over the top crazy and you're just like, what the fuck are you rambling about?
You should probably see a counselor for your drug use because shit is getting out of hand, man.
But then he turned around and made Batman. 1989's Batman, which was a huge game changer for superhero movies.
It was.
You'd had Richard Donner's Superman and Superman 2, and then you had that shitty Superman 3 and that terrible Superman 4. So they were going downhill so fast, but then you had Tim Burton came out and made fucking Batman, and you're just like, this movie is amazing.
Shit fucking slaps. Jack Nicholson is the Joker.
Right? What a classic movie.
Classic movie.
I mean, the Batman fandom holds it a little too high, in my opinion, because I think there are way better Batman movies. But if it wasn't for that movie, we wouldn't have the movies we have now.
Yeah.
So it deserves its credit.
Yeah, I think that part of that goes along with it being directed by Tim Burton and the music from Danny Elfman, like super iconic. You know it's Danny Elfman, you know it's Tim Burton directing it, but it's a Batman movie. I think that's where a lot of the appeal comes from so many people, is that like it's very cartoony but super dark and a goth type of Danny Elfman, Tim Burton.
And that soundtrack is so iconic. Like I literally keep it in my Spotify playlist because it's so good.
Yeah.
And there's so many just incredible tracks that you listen to it while you're working out or just while you're working, or you could listen to it at any time and you could feel it. It's such a good score.
Yeah, I think that's the same appeal for like Nightmare Before Christmas. Is the soundtrack, and it's so recognizable.
What's this?
Yeah, which is actually Danny Elfman does the voice of Jack when he's singing.
Have you seen the? It was a live show where Danny Elfman was doing the music for Nightmare Before Christmas, and he had Billie Eilish come on and do the part for Sally.
Oh, really?
It's really good.
Huh. That'd be cool.
I really enjoyed it because they were doing costumes and everything with it.
Like a live action, or is it like a?
Yeah, they were pretty much playing out all the music from the movie as the movie.
In front of an audience, or they're just doing it? Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
I think they did it at like the Hollywood Bowl or something like that, some huge venue. Yeah, I'll have to find it and I'll send you some of those videos. It's pretty entertaining to watch.
We were talking about most of these movies. We're doing good, man.
Dude, we're nailing it.
Christmas Story, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Splash, fucking what's his name?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks was a big star in the 80s too.
Oh yeah, he definitely rose. Big.
Yeah.
Love Big.
Yeah. One of those movies we'd watch quite a bit, and we always like, dude, if I was rich, I would totally have one of those big pianos.
I would totally live in like that one room floor.
I just have a huge trampoline, And I would have like, I wouldn't just have the one soda machine. I'd have like candy machines and the claws.
I think that's what was great about that movie, was because it appealed to kids in a way of like, look at what you could do with adult money, you know, but you're still a kid.
Right.
Which, to me, if I had that kind of funding, I would have all that stuff. I would probably still sleep in a bunk bed.
Yeah. You can bang this hot chick.
Who's actually like 4 times your age.
That was a little bit weird, but...
He gave her a mood ring. It's okay.
True. And there's no real evidence that they ever did anything.
Yeah, I mean, the Zoltan knows, but...
Yeah. Ha, 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 ha. We'll have to ask Zoltan if we ever see him. Splash. Never-ending Story.
Oh my God, the Never-ending Story. I think animated movies were on a huge uptick in the 80s too.
Yeah. The Rescuers.
I was literally about to say that. The Rescuers Down Under.
All Dogs Go to Heaven, maybe, was in the 80s, probably.
Maybe early 90s. I actually watched a clip about that yesterday where the director of that was talking about, you know, Burt Reynolds was always like the man's man, and he was like the archetype of what other men looked up to as a man. And then they went to record the dialogue for that last scene where his character Charlie dies, and he asked everybody to leave. Like, nobody in the building except for him and the technician. And it took him like all day to record that scene because he kept breaking down crying. Like, this big man's man is having trouble like saying his lines because he's just upset and sobbing. And I was like, God damn, that's powerful.
Yeah, that his cartoon character dog is dying. That's...
I couldn't imagine Burt Reynolds crying. You know how he laughs when he's like, ha 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 ha? It's probably like that when he cries.
I keep like trying to get a mental picture of Burt Reynolds in my head, and all I can get is Norm Macdonald dressed as Burt Reynolds. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen any of his Saturday Night Live clips of him playing Burt Reynolds, but...
I think of Burt Reynolds, and I think of him from Smokey and the Bandit. Just with the mustache. Or even Deliverance, where without his mustache he looks like a totally different person.
Yeah.
No, that's not Burt Reynolds.
That's like Tom Selleck too.
I can still see it with Tom Selleck, but it's definitely off-putting.
Yeah. Like, dude, you got a fucking camel lip, dude. Throw that thing back, bro.
Like him and Bruce Willis, the distance between their nose and their upper lip is like this much.
Yeah. Sam Elliott, iconic mustache.
Have a nice Coors while driving in your Chevy.
It's pretty good.
I was on the spot too.
Yeah.
Probably from watching The Ranch so much.
That's a good show.
I love that show.
It is pretty funny. Even though you can't talk about Danny Masterson anymore, I guess.
I mean, you can up until the allegations.
Fair enough.
When you didn't know any better, it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had to pick one quintessential 80s movie, one movie that defined the whole decade, what would it be?
That defines the 80s? Oh, man. I would have to say Weird Science.
I'm kind of torn between Weird Science and Predator.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could make a Weird Science Predator mashup, maybe the kids want to make an alien creature.
Dude, Warner Brothers, give us a call. We'll figure this out. Could you imagine like a Weird Science movie in this day and age, but the kids have access to like high-tech computers and 3D printers and all this other bullshit, and they're like, you know what'd be cool, because they have an obsession with the movie The Predator, you know what'd be cool is if we made The Predator for real. And then they weird science that shit into reality, and then they have to call Arnold Schwarzenegger to come take it down.
Well, they have to create an Arnold Schwarzenegger character.
Yes. I dig it. Yeah, give us a call.
Yeah. Stop being little bitches.
What do you mean you made a Predator?
It's like Stranger Things, but like of all the other 80s shit that's super cool.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny you mentioned Stranger Things because of the whole 80s nostalgia that goes with that show.
Yeah.
And I think that's, at first, like 50% of what drew people in.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you'd see the trailer and they would have like the binders and the backpacks and the way they dressed, and people are like, oh my god, I did that when I was a kid, you know.
Even like the Stranger Things logo is like a neon sign with the music that goes behind it.
Yeah.
That's 80s.
Super 80s synth.
Super 80s.
That synth music really came about in the 80s, and they used it to great effect.
Oh yeah. And then, you know, the music that goes along with Stranger Things. Kate Bush
running up that hill.
Yeah, I mean, iconic 80s nostalgia, you know, blowing your hair back, making you know, get down on that 80s shit. Like he's like singing the Never Ending Story song with the girl on the phone. But even the whole, like, the premise of the show is like Goonies. It's like a gang full of kids that are playing Dungeons and Dragons, a super 80s type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got it right away. It was like, dude, this is so my shit, dude. How about it?
Now, if they ever do a Stranger Things that's set in the 90s, 100% in.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be down with that too.
Yeah, I mean, those two decades are just iconic, and I think the 90s kind of deserves its own episode, but they play into each other so well that it's... You know how sometimes you can kind of put two decades together? Because I think of like the 2000s and then the 2010s are basically the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
But the 80s and 90s are two totally different animals.
It's like they're brothers for sure.
Absolutely. Some kind of coexisting sibling.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. Like the 2000s, 2010s is just one big wide open gap of substance. Really, for me. It's
kind of all been the same.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you define it by whatever sense of pop culture, music, or movies, or whatever, I don't see any defining lines in the 2000s like you did between the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. You know, and even in those terms where you kind of had hair metal and glam rock in the 80s, and then you had this very stark, sharp line in the 90s where it's like, okay, now grunge is popular. Mm-hmm. And this is dead. We're going forward with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even the movies kind of held that same kind of stigma of, we're not going to do the same machismo thing. We're going to do something else.
Yeah.
But we'll have to talk about that in another episode.
In the 90s episode.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Print it.
With that said, I think we covered all the 80s movies.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen these movies, if you're a youngster, even if you're older, like there's people that I know that are, you know, of a decent age that haven't seen a lot of these movies, Stitch, that, you know, just need to go and sit down and watch some movies.
I love that you went right for the throat on that one. I'm gonna cut that into a clip and send it to him directly.
Cut into a clip and put it on TikTok so he might actually see it.
Possible. Okay, that was good. I'm glad we talked about this.
Yeah, me too.
We'll have to do the 90s again pretty soon.
Maybe we'll even do an 80s movie review.
Dude, we'll just pick a movie.
Pick a movie.
And just sit and watch it and bash the shit out of it.
Hell yeah.
Howard the Duck. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.